Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're from. Hello, this is Anne Phey. I'm a leadership coach, and I'm coming to you with 365 Paid Forward with the Life Coach University. So today we're going to talk about listening. It's part of the series that I'm sharing about leadership lessons from the boss from hell to heaven. And if you love anything that you're hearing today, please share it with your friends and pay it forward. Do something good and help somebody along the way. So, yesterday we talked about feedback and feed forward. And interestingly, something happened today, and I decided to talk a little bit about listening before we move on to the next matrix on benchmarking. So, I had a coachee come in today, and he told me that we talked about feedback and feed forward, and people got really excited. So if you tune into my LinkedIn, suddenly there are like 30 over comments about how a lot of times we need to make sure that we are kind and in our criticism, and to not shame people in public. But if we have anything to say, please say it in private. And I think that is so true. So let me just do a quick recap so that we're all aligned here, because some of you I see have just joined us today. So when we talk about feedback, a lot of times we're very vocal with our view of somebody of their past. But the past is the past. We can't change it. What we can do is move forward. And which is why we call it feed forward, because we want to talk about what is the thing that we can do to improve ourselves. So yesterday in one of my LinkedIn, somebody said, "Hey, you got to go check out what somebody else said about Feed Forward." And I looked through some of the resources that was in the chat, and I found one resource with one of our famous coaches, Marshall, and David Marshall, and he said that one of the things that he does is he's even done it on a football stadium where he got everybody to stand up and give feet forward. How is that even possible? And what he said was he asked everybody to think about one thing that could help somebody else. And they also ask everybody to think about one thing that you want to improve on. So to that one person who stands up, say, "Hey, I want to improve my communication." Then everybody will give him a tip on how he could improve his communication. So in that way, it became fun, it became friendly, and it helped him to move forward. And today, as I mentioned, I met my coachee, and he said that, oh, he did something different with his team members. So he runs a huge team of 8 business unit leaders and teams under them. And he got them to basically give him his feedback. So as a manager, he put something on the screen, and everybody wrote anonymously about their feedback about individuals in the team. And because it was anonymous, people were more daring to share. And they took it in very good and open spirit to say, let's look at it positively so that we can improve on ourselves. And he said after he did that, and then they had team bonding, they had like food and drinks. And actually, over the drinks, people actually started opening up to say who gave him whatever feedback, right? So, one of the things that his team said that as a boss, you don't listen. And he was like, and then they were chatting, chatting. Somebody else, who was a little bit, high on the alcohol, he was like, yeah, yeah, we all agree. So it does open up for conversation. And if you are humble enough to receive this sharing, you will move forward, you will change. And that is one of the things that I decided to talk about listening. So at the back of my screen is a Chinese word called listen. In it's pronounced as ting, Ting, with a very light tone, ting. And this is an amazing word. In the past, when words were developed, it was actually based on characteristics of what made up the word. And I love this word. It is something that is amazing in this word. And hi, and more people joining. I see some coaches joining, so you might find this familiar. Today, we're going to talk about listening. So, could be a revision, could be something new. Type into the chat if you have your opinions about it too. So when we talk about listening, it's not just hearing what was given as opinions from people. What we're listening for is, what do they mean? So when we say something, there is always a meaning behind it, and there's always a motivation, and there's always an intention. So when we listen, we are really listening with full concentration, with open mind and open heart to hear what exactly is the other person communicating. So I want to talk about listening, not just about feedback or feed forward, but generally listening, because feedback and feed forward happens all the time. So yesterday when we talked about it, it was purposefully orchestrating and asking people to share with us. But if we're listening all the time, then we are getting all this positive feedback. We're getting all this sharing from people, and we can start reflecting and changing. And we don't have to wait for that orchestrated moment of, oh, I'm going to get a 360 feedback. Oh, I'm going to get into a session where we're going to write things about each other. And that's why I was so inspired today to talk about listening. Now, if you look at this Chinese character on my right side, sorry, this is a mirror image. So this is a word called the ear. So is So ear refers to the organ. These two things that are hanging on the side of our head. Some have really nice long ones, and some are really cute pointy ones. Now, if you realize that a lot of times when we grow up as children, they will say, "Hey, you have two ears and one mouth. Listen, don't talk so much." Like, because you have two pairs of eyes and two eyes and two ears. So obviously, maybe nature intended for us to observe more, look, and listen more. Now, this word thing, basically, it's about listening with the ear. And so the year is sitting on this character called Wang, and Wang is the king, which means that the years are the king of our organs. So not our mouth. We love to talk. We don't really listen. And sometimes we see like two old men, sitting in the coffee shop and they're talking, and one is talking, and before the other one finishes, the other one's talking. And sometimes when you listen to what they're talking, they're not talking to each other, they're talking at each other. So they're just busy trying to tell each other their own story, and they're not really listening. Does it sound familiar? And sometimes it's like that. And at the workplace, we practice listening to an art, or rather, not listening to an art where someone's talking, especially we're very well practiced through school. We're listening to the lecture and we're not quite listening. And when it comes to the workplace, when someone is saying something, our eyes will glaze over when we don't agree. And sometimes we're so busy multitasking and we're not really listening. So now I'm really encouraging all of us, when someone's talking to you, and hopefully you're not multitasking and you're watching this Zoom, watch the person with your eyes and listen with both your ears. Pay full attention, because it is important when you're listening. You're not just hearing the audio sounds that's coming in. You're listening for the words, you're listening to the tone and the pace, and watching the facial expression of what's going on. Now, if someone's saying, I'm listening, they are a bit doubtful, right? Or someone saying, I am listening. Or someone, I am listening. Yeah, right. So when you say it in a different tone, or maybe in a different pace, something is happening within that person that regulates that tone and pace. So can you catch what is the underlying emotion? So how often have we, maybe spoken to a partner, and maybe our partner's either watching Netflix, or nowadays watching TikTok, and not quite listening. Say, hey, are you listening to me? Yeah, 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 I'm listening to you, but the eyes are there. Like, so what did I say? So we're so used to being distracted that how could we really listen if our eyes are on something else? So I really encourage us to practice the art of listening, watch and listen and observe, right? And on this part of of the character, on top is a 10. 10 meaning, like, if you look at a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is like perfection, right? So 10 is also means fully, fully. And underneath the 10, what do those look like? They're like your eyes. That's why I say listening is also with the eyes, the pair of eyes, like putting on your goggles and really paying attention. Watch the gesture, watch the reaction, watch the body language. So a lot of times when someone's confident, we know that, shoulders back, really. When they speak, it's open. But if they are depressed or unhappy, they tend to hunch, and the voice will be lower, and you see them, crouching down. So when we're watching with our eyes, we're also watching the body language to see what's happening, right? It's not just the level of confidence, but also the emotions and what's really going on in their life. And when we're listening and watching with our eyes in full concentration, the remaining of the words, I'm going to shift. There's a one, yi xing. So yi xing is one heart. So you're also listening with your heart. The kids love to do this. When I went to Brazil, they all love to do this heart sign. And what is it about the heart in listening? Why do we need our heart? We can listen with our brains. When we listen with our brains, we are mentally processing, right? We're hearing what's coming in, our minds making sense, we're joining the dots, which is important, and we're figuring out what is being said. And sometimes we're trying to second guess as well. What's the intention? Why is he saying that? What's going on in her life that's making her say these things? And what has she just gone through? And a lot of times we don't know what a person has gone through in their life, or even in that day or in that moment, they might have gone through something really traumatic, or they may have gone through something that is joyful and they want to share. Now, when we're listening with our heart, it's not just the mental processing of what's being said. We are paying attention by giving compassion. We're giving them a piece of our willingness and open-hearted, which is an openness to receive the message, an openness to see the person for who he or she is, whatever their agenda, wherever their gender, whatever they've gone through in that day, and what they're trying to say to us. When we display that openness, we are showing that we trust them. It's not like, So when we fold our arms like that, we cross our arms, we cross our heart, we cover our heart, and we're no longer open. But when we open up our arms and our heart, we are allowing the person to be comfortable, to open up, to share, and to spill out whatever it is that's from deep within them. And communication is something that we've practiced so well, inverted commas, because we've all grown up with saying the usual stuff, right? You meet someone and you say, "Hey, how are you? I'm fine." And you, "I'm good." And then you get on with the day's agenda, right? But if you were to pause and say, "How are you?" And with your eyes looking at the person, with your ears open and your heart open. If someone said that to me, I will want to say, I had a long day. I want to tell you, are you ready to hear it? And if we continue to focus all our attention on the person, we're giving an opportunity for the person to unload. And these chances are very rare because we've honed ourselves into creatures of efficiency. and we're always rushing from meetings to meetings, agenda after agenda. And sometimes these moments of human connection can just easily be missed just because we're looking on our handphone, running, and with a crowd around us, sometimes we forget. But in that moment, if we could give someone a chance to just say a couple of sentences of what they're up to, what's happening in their lives, who knows how you would touch their lives by just giving the attention. And that is the beauty of listening. It doesn't have to be a scheduled moment where you sit down and do a feedback or that, hey, I'm listening to you now, which is quite typical when when someone doesn't listen to you. I really need to have a talk, right? But in moments like these, can we give of ourselves that patience, the split seconds where we can just pause and look someone in the eye and say, I'm here for you. Tell me, I'm here. I am listening. I'm listening with my ears and my eyes and my heart. What do you have to say? So it's it's a wonderful faculty that we have with our ears, but listening takes the entire body. It takes the entire person to be immersed in that moment. So I want to encourage all of us to really take the moments. And who knows who you meet, right? Even if it's a stranger on the street or someone that we know fleetingly in our workplace or in our community, we don't know if that person has someone that they can lean on or they can talk to, or someone that might be having a lot of problems but unable to articulate. So let's take the time and let's be patient and give ourselves some space so that we can allow some space for others, and that you never know, for that moment in time you might be there for someone who is in a moment of critical situation. You could even save lives. So I have had stories where, when I was much younger, where some of us would go through some childhood trauma, and I was one of those, and I didn't have anyone to turn to. and and even though I went to a religious space, which my mom had allowed me to go as I think I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And when I was allowed to go there and I spoke to everyone, and people just thought I was a kid. And everything was cursory. It was very much like everyone was just rushing from a program to another. And little would they know that a kid, seemingly normal, may be going through some really tough situation in her life. And if someone had spoken to me or allowed me to speak about what was happening, they could have helped me to avoid some really horrible incidences that was happening. And these things could continue for years unless someone knew to step in. So I'm sorry, I'm being a bit vague about it. Yeah, but there are people who are going through things in life. So whether it is family violence, or some disappointment in lives, or they might have people at home that are ill and they're unable to cope, or they might be going through their own physical illness that might be stressing them, or maybe some financial crisis, because I think over COVID, quite a lot of people's earnings and jobs were affected. So you never know what's happening in someone's life just by looking at them. So give the people around you an opportunity just to hear them out. Because by hearing them out, sometimes, even if you can't help them, by being able to listen allows them a space to let out what's going on in there. And those of you who are coaches that are on the call, thank you for joining. As coaches, we often use reflections, right, for helping our coaches going forward. So when someone is sharing about something, we can reflect back and say, hey, so I'm hearing that this is happening. Or sometimes the person, as they are talking, they're starting to get clarity about what's going on in life, and they're starting to learn more about themselves. And just by talking it out, it releases the stress. It allows them to have clarity. It allows them to be able to better process it, because sometimes it's stuck so deep inside them, or it's so frustrating for them. So especially if you have a really emotional day, if we just keep and bottle it up, I mean, you're going to go home and scream, right? But by being able to have someone to listen to you and just pour out, however small, however big the issues are, it lightens their burden. So if we could be that compassionate listener, we could make so many persons' day, right? And we'll all become better people. The person that's going through it will have better clarity, lighter work, lighten their burden, and they'll be able to sort things out. And then they also know that there are people who care about them, and if there's any help that's needed, they will seek help. Now, if all of us did that, wouldn't this make the world better, brighter? And if you look at it, this is part of paying it forward, right? I always say, like, givers gain. If you give your time, give. It doesn't have to be going somewhere to give a donation. Just giving time, giving them that ability to share, it is giving. So I'd like to encourage all of us to consider that. So thank you for listening. I hope that you've listened with your ears, your eyes, your heart, and received this what I have to say. And moving forward, let's look at how, we could really make a difference in our family or in our community. Sometimes the ones that are closest to us don't get our full attention, just because we know that we're always there. And recently, I have quite a few friends who are going through some difficulties. Their family members are not well, and that's when sometimes panic kicks in, and they start to look at, how do they forgive one another over all the things in the past and all that. So in the spirit of talking about feedback, feed forward yesterday, and also what we're talking about today about listening, let's not wait till then. If we have friends or family that mean a lot to us, take the time now to go talk to them, repair those relationships, give them a chance to share and talk, because it is, after all, human connections that make a difference. When we come to the later part of our lives, it's not about the achievements that we made, how many awards we won, what kind of promotions. I mean, you could be earning lots of money and be a millionaire, but unless you have touched lives, or your life has been touched, nothing else is really as meaningful. So I really hope that we can start making a change, um, where we are, and allowing ourselves and others a chance. And by doing so, our voices can also be heard. All right. So I'm going to be opening up again for questions and any comments. Let's see what's going on. And thank you, everyone, for joining. I've got friends from my workplace. Thank you for coming in, and coaches, and lots of new people I haven't met. Thank you for coming in. I have a comment here. This is probably the best class I've attended about how to really listen. Thank you. Oh, you're so sweet. I love that. I feel so touched. Because I think, I mean, I mean, when I started this talk, I was telling the organizers and in the end that, hey, this is really my giving back. I have no idea, how well I'm going to talk or whether it resonates, because there are a lot of like really cool speakers and really famous subject matter experts out there. But I think that we all, each one of us, and including all of you in this Zoom call now, in this mm, session, that we all have been through life and we have survived, we've learned, and we've grown. So wherever we are, we do have something that we can share that can encourage one another. So I'm really very encouraged when you say that, because this comes from a, how do you say, a genuine and sincere heart about what I've experienced and what I think is important, and I hope it resonates with you. And I have a question: how do I stay open to listen to feedback when the person sharing is very negative or just being blaming me? Okay. That's a really good question. It's very difficult to take negative remarks, and we've all been through that, right? Um, so I think there are a couple of strategies that I take, that you could try. One of it is that sometimes the person that's giving the feedback may not be aware about their tone of voice. So it comes in as really fast and furious and aggressive and really negative. So what I sometimes do is I try to separate the person that's speaking and the way they're talking about it and what they're sharing, so that I try to listen to the essence of what is being shared. Like, what is the person really saying? So I'll try to focus on the content, and I will try to say, okay, I will acknowledge to myself inside me while the person's going on. I will acknowledge that, okay, maybe the guy's had a bad day, or maybe this person is always very negative. If there's a pattern, like, okay, I know she's always negative and she's gonna come at me like this, or that the person just had a bad day and letting off steam. Some people have many, many bad days, right? Accumulated, so it comes out like that. So it's like, we can have humor too, right? Sometimes we look at them and we can laugh, but actually it's quite pitiful. If someone is going through so many bad days and they are lashing out like this, I mean, on one hand, it is about management of emotions and having EQ, but also it's quite painful if they're going through all this and they're not able to have a sort to an outlet to let go, and they have to let go at someone like me or you that's receiving it. So when I separate that, then I can take the content more holistically and positively, and then I will look at how to deal with the person and the tonality of it all. Okay. And uh and the other point about, okay, what if the person is just blaming me? I am what they call, in Asian terms they call it thick skin, which means my skin is very thick. I'm not so easily embarrassed, although sometimes I am embarrassed, but I try to be strong. So I say, if I haven't done anything wrong, then I will stand up for myself. Why should I let anyone blame me? And I think you shouldn't too. Like, if you're just blaming me, but I'm not at fault, then you're not really being mature to find out what exactly what's happening. And retaliating or trying to clarify at that moment when someone's angry and spewing all kinds of words like an erupted volcano, you just run and take cover first, right? Because otherwise you're just going to be, bashing each other up. So I'll wait for the situation to cool down, and also for my emotions too, because um not all of us are angels. Like, I'm a boss from heaven, but sometimes I descend into hell too. So when someone's like berating, imagine, like, if someone's berating me, I may not be able to calm down and say, and be like heavenly and say, okay, I'm going to take this, but I will try to listen first, and I'll just say thank you for sharing. And I will also wait till I'm calmer, because sometimes my emotion might be also up and down because of whatever words that are being used. We might be triggered too, like, oh, how could you say that? Like, oh. So we calm down first and wait for an opportunity. for us to also think into the content and digest it. Is it making sense? Is it really true? Am I really at fault? And if not, okay. So we take what is positive that we can learn from. We take whatever is negative, that anything that we need to change and become better at. And then we find another moment when this volcano is calmer and we can have a chat like, hey, what you spoke about that day or just now. I think in essence, the content, I agree with this is this. There are some areas I can change, but there are some areas that I I felt like I was being blamed. And I was just wondering what's going on in your space. And and also sometimes we can just say, hey, how are you doing? You sounded really angry. Something happening that is triggering you. So we can show concern, we can address it in a calm manner, but most of all, actually, I would say thank you for sharing, because a lot of times, if people don't share with us what's going on, we really may not see the other perspective. So I would thank every feedback, feed forward, feed backwards, any nasties, because it's an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity not just to learn about whatever they said, it's an opportunity for me to regulate my emotions and to see things positively. It's also an opportunity for me to find out how the other person is so that we could also reach out. Yeah. So thank you for that question. I hope that helps. All right. Another question. We have a manager who always wants to be on our good side. So he tries to be nice, even tries to be your friend. But then he blows up when something goes wrong. Some colleagues talk badly about him. It's a divide. Some like him, some don't. Okay. Um, wow. This is interesting. I guess for all of us as humans and as managers, I always look at the heart, right? I'm someone who always looks into the heart and the intention. What is this manager really all about? Is he someone that really cares for the team? Or is he someone that's really, this is a job, I get it done, and then you guys are minions? I'm sorry if you guys like minions, but kind of like you get the gist. So to me, if his intentions are good and his heart is really for the team, then maybe it is his methods that are not as how do you say, not as human, not as gentle, and not as professional. And sometimes to the point that maybe the person's EQ or choice of words or self-awareness is not there, right? So I'll usually break it down like this. So if the person has heart, then I think the rest can be solved. If the person doesn't have heart, um, you would really need to have literally a change of heart, right? So if your manager wants to be on the good side and tries to be nice, mm, I think he really wants to form friendship with the team. But when something goes wrong and he blows up, it could be that he may not be able to control his emotions. So maybe short fused, and we do have people like that. And what um what I've learned, there's this there are a couple of ways you can do it, right? Learning meditation, learning about mindfulness, and in fact, recently I'm working on a coach engagement role with this solution called Positive Intelligence, where they have an app where they talk about how do you understand your saboteurs and how you could overcome it. So sometimes the saboteur could be someone who's a perfectionist, sounds familiar, a hyperachiever. So they cannot tolerate anything that is wrong. Yeah, or maybe the person's a stickler. He likes to do things like A, B, C, D, and if you do it in the wrong order, they get really upset. So then, whatever reason, whatever personality that maybe that doesn't go his way and he's not able to manage the emotion and therefore he erupts. So in that sense, um but that's what I can see based on the situation. So there's no right and wrong. I mean, whether you like the boss or not doesn't really matter. I think um if we're really going to form a great team is to perhaps find someone who is able to talk to him and help him to have some self-awareness. Like my millennial teammate is like, hey, Anne, I'm going to tell you this. She's very direct, but not many, not everyone can take directness. But find someone who is able to have a chat with him, maybe over coffee, and say, hey, that outburst was a little uncomfortable for the team. Uh, why do you think that happened? So, or get him a coach so that he can understand that there's something going on. I do have a coachee that had this challenge. Um, she is someone who is a bit of a perfectionist, for lack of a better term. And because a lot of the team members have been in the organization for a very long time, they're used to doing things a certain way. But of course, as you know, in the VUCA world, a lot of things are changing, so processes need to change. Technology needs to be implemented, and there needs to be new way of doing things. So humans being humans are less less loving in terms of change. They're quite change resistant. So when she tried to make all the changes, it was really difficult. And also because they have a pattern of different managers rotating through the department, and she would get really frustrated and she would lose her cool. Yeah. Um, but I think the moment, but a lot of managers, they may not say that they are unaware, but they may need some time and help to become better. So with this coachee, it was really about she had her self-awareness and she realized that there were certain signals that led up to the blow up, right? So first was she started to recognize that she started to talk faster and faster and faster and faster. So her heartbeat was going bum, 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 bum. So when that happens, it's like, okay, you notice some of these signals, breathe. Yeah, learn to breathe deeply and cool, right? So that the heart doesn't continue to beat and then you talk faster and faster and then it becomes louder and louder until she gets into a shouting mode, right? So there are ways to manage. So what's really important is have that self-awareness. So whether you look for the HR to go talk to him or find someone in the team to have coffee and kind of like gently let him know, and then he can seek help, get a coach, go for mindfulness, meditation, anything that helps to calm him down. And that would be how I approach it. Thank you for all these great questions. I'm loving it. Are there any other comments? I'm gonna navigate here and there. Okay. So looks like we've answered all the questions. So I hope you enjoyed today's sharing about listening. So if I could ask you to pay it forward, if you felt this was useful, practice it. Because by practicing it, you are paying it forward. And also look out for people around. Because with COVID, everyone is highly strung. And in fact, they said like in Singapore, when we have a little bit more freedom, people start to go out and let out all the frustrations that's been pent up over the last 1 to 2 years. So let's just be aware. We ourselves need to have an outlet. So go find something that makes you happy. If you love to dance, to paint, to take long walks, or maybe just go find a place with a jacuzzi and just soak in there. Let's find a place that we can enjoy and find friends that we can talk to, because we are humans and connection and being able to share and talk is important. And I know that during COVID, many of us ended up just with our face on our on our Zoom, and we sometimes even forget to get up and have a glass of water or to look out into the sky and appreciate what's around us. So let's appreciate ourselves. We've worked really hard through this pandemic. We've continuing to work hard as the world changes. So be gentle with ourselves and nourish ourselves and listen to ourselves too. And with that, I'm going to just say thank you for coming in and listening. And this is Anne Phey, leadership coach, and I'm with the 365 Pay It Forward. So pay it forward after the session. And tomorrow I'll come back and talk about benchmarking. So is benchmarking really a healthy comparison? I'd like to hear your views too. And if there's any other topics you'd like me to talk about, well, we have 31 days, so we've got lots of time to share what you would like us to talk about. So looking forward to see you again. Thank you for joining and signing off. See ya. Thank you.